And yeah, I do want to talk about your story. I'd like to talk about your podcast and all things carnivore with you, including your upcoming book as well. But let's start out with your own personal story. Are you from the Chicago area originally?
Yeah, so I'm from Rockford, Illinois, which is like an hour west. But I've lived in the Chicagoland area now for probably about 6 years. My husband is from Chicago and then lived in the suburbs. So that's where we are now.
Gotcha. Okay. And then did you have any health issues while you were growing up?
No, generally pretty healthy. I did have some drug and alcohol issues starting around the age of 13. I was diagnosed with anxiety and depression, nothing like super hardcore. I think it was mostly just maybe the people I was hanging out with, and I just, the way it is. But yeah, I did have some mental health issues that I self-medicated with drugs and alcohol. So I would say, yeah, that would probably be the most major thing. But as far as like physical conditions, no, I was pretty healthy growing up.
Okay. Gotcha. And then how did you end up finding low carbohydrate diets to begin with?
Well, my husband, he had lost over 130 pounds using keto and water fasting between 2016 and 2017. And he had found Dr. Ken Berry on YouTube, like most of us do. And he's like, hey, I want to try this diet, but I want you to do it with me because for him, with his previous relationship, he had always found that it was so hard to do a diet when your partner isn't on board, or maybe even actively sabotaging you with, having the foods you're trying not to eat around. So at that point, I had, how old were our kids? Maybe like almost one. No, they were 6 months old at that time. It was the summer. And I had a lot of weight to lose. I gained 70 pounds when I was pregnant with our twins. And I was trying just the traditional route, the Noom app. It was like, fruits, vegetables, lean meats, very low fat. And I was losing weight very slowly, but I also still kind of, subscribe to the paradigm that, you have to have fruits and vegetables. That's where you're getting all your vitamins and minerals, blah, 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 blah. So my first thing I said to him was like, how can you just eat meat? How would you get all your vitamins and minerals? That was like my number one concern. But I started watching the videos with him because we just watched them here in the living room, and kind of by osmosis, it started to kind of kick in. So cut to 6 months later, it was December. I'd only lost like 20 pounds on Noom in a year. And yeah, okay,
Wow.
great, 20 pounds, but I was like 195 pounds still. I had some significant weight to lose and I was miserable. So I just said, you know what, honey, I think I'm going to try carnivore for 30 days. I had been wearing a continuous glucose monitor for about 3 months at that point, just because I've always kind of been a data-driven person. And I was curious to see if my glucose would shift at all. I was typically in the high 90s, low 100s, following the Noom way. And of course, when I had like 2 cups of grapes, it'd go, you know. So I was just curious to see what would happen. So I actually started carnivore before my husband, believe it or not.
Wow.
We tried to stagger our start dates because we had 1-year-old twins, and I didn't want us to both have keto flu at the same time. And at that point, my husband wasn't like, he was more dirty keto. He wasn't going hard, but he really wanted to. So yeah, I started, and that first month I lost 8 pounds, and my glucose went down into the low 80s overall average. So I was like, there's something to this. I did have very, very bad keto flu that lasted like 6 weeks. I actually think it was a combination of keto flu and oxalate dumping now, but I didn't know what that was back then. So yeah, I suffered, but I lost some weight. And within the first 90 days, I lost 15 and a half pounds, which obviously is significantly more than I'd lost doing the normal way. So yeah, I was hooked, and now here I am, over 2 years on carnivore, and it's just my life now.
Yeah, that's awesome. And you experienced something. You talked about your 90-day kind of transition, and it sounds really linear as far as the weight loss goes, but you actually had a little bit of a bump in the second month where the weight loss kind of slowed down. I heard you and Tony talking about this. This is something I get asked all the time. So maybe you could talk about, a carnivore diet that includes dairy. Should I include dairy in my carnivore journey? How would you specifically answer that question to take an aside?
Yeah, that's a great question. So in the first month, I did not include dairy. I can't honestly remember why I didn't in the first place, but I think I just wanted to do meat and eggs and butter and things like that. Butter I never include when I'm including dairy. I'm thinking of liquid dairy and cheese when I think of dairy. Butter,
Well said.
has had all the stuff removed. It's just fat. So the second month we were traveling, and I decided, you know what, I'm going to add some half and half into my morning coffees. And I did have some cheese, and I lost 8 pounds the first month. The second month I lost 2. So then the third month, I cut the dairy back out and I lost 5.5. So, yes, I do think there is a component to the dairy. That's actually my very first tip for any newcomer. For some people, starting with dairy is helpful because otherwise they feel really restricted. But I do think that if you are having a hard time losing weight on carnivore, cut the dairy, cut the cheese, cut the liquid dairy, and just do it for a month and see what happens. A lot of people don't realize that they're having an inflammatory response to dairy. And I'm talking about conventional dairy, not raw dairy. I haven't tested raw dairy myself to see if I have the same kind of reactions. But to this day, I still cannot do much dairy. I actually have Hashimoto's hypothyroid. I know that now. And man, if I have dairy, I get so puffy. My eyes get puffy. My joints hurt. I get a little bit of mental health symptoms like depression. And I can't do it. So it is something to think about. I think more people are have a reaction to dairy than they think. And most people, they've just been eating it their whole lives. So they just don't know until they cut it and then reintroduce. So that's kind
Well
of what I
said.
think about that.
That's really well said. That's along the lines of how I think about it as well. But also, kind of, you alluded to this as well. When somebody is taking that step, it can be quite difficult. Was it difficult for you to cut out half and half from your coffee?
Yeah,
Yeah,
100%. I still want to have it. I drink black now, but like, yes, would I have half and half if I could? 100%.
yeah.
It sucks, but I I prefer feeling good. And then every time I do it, because I'm not going to say I'm a saint, I'm human. Once in a blue moon, I do, and then I suffer. And then I remember why I don't do it. So, yeah, for sure. It's
It's a nice
hard.
reminder. Yeah,
Yeah.
it is. It's a nice reminder. Yeah, it's not. I'm like you. I approach it in a similar way, where like this is not the flag I'm going to be planting on the hill for getting started. But if you're not getting the results you want, if you're starting to plateau, you should probably look at this. And I'm kind of like you. Like I think most people should try a stricter version of a carnivore diet for whatever time frame makes most sense: 30 days, 60 days, 90 days, and then slowly add some of these things back in and see what you even miss. Like it will be very difficult to cut half and half out of your diet in the beginning for sure, but you might not miss it as much as you think, or you might notice exactly what you noticed, the suffering. And yes, you prefer to feel good over what the cream tasted like.
Yeah. Yeah, 100%. I mean, we have half and half in the fridge right now because my husband doesn't have the same reactions. And I'm not like, oh, I need the half and half. You know what I mean? It's not something I can't moderate. It's not something I crave. But yeah, that seems to work for me. So I just don't do it anymore.
Yeah, awesome. Okay, well, being a mom of two very rambunctious kiddos, twins, and going through this transition, I think it's hilarious and actually quite smart that you guys tapered your start so you didn't have the keto flu at the same time. I do want to ask you about transitioning also. But when did you start to decide to make content around carnivore? You must have been quite busy and had your hands full, changing the diet, revamping the kitchen, all that other stuff. Anyway, what made you decide that you wanted to start doing some content around this?
That's another great question. You're so good at asking questions. I feel like I'm on Hot Ones.
Uh,
So I have had a YouTube channel of some form since 2020. Pandemic, we used to do a lot of traveling. So we started with an outdoor channel. It's called Adventures in Jennyland, outdoor camping and travel channel. Then that went to our second channel, which was an Airstream renovation channel. We bought an Airstream vintage in November of 2020, 1989 Airstream Excella, and started renovating that with no experience. We are not carpenters. It's just a project. I like projects. Did that. And then I got pregnant, planned, but it was twins. And I'm like, well, we can't really go camping, can't renovate an Airstream when I'm this pregnant. So why not just do like a twin mom lifestyle channel? So that's what Jenny Mitich originally was. And I was creating content around that, and it was growing pretty slowly. I think I had like 1,600 subscribers when I released my first carnivore content. And I released my 30-day carnivore update and my 90-day carnivore update simultaneously because I had no other carnivore content on my channel. And I watched a lot of like how to build a YouTube channel content, and it said if you don't have anything else on there, make sure you have a few pieces of the same. So if it does take off, they can kind of feed off of each other. And that worked really well. I kind of knew that carnivore, it was a popular topic. So I had an idea. I thought maybe a few thousand views, but man, that 30-day carnivore update took off. I think currently it has six or 700,000 views on it. I mean, my channel went from 1,600 subs to like 8,600 in a week, and
Wow.
it just grew and grew. And then my 6 month carnivore blood work video, that really took off too. So my channel grew exponentially that first 6 months of 2023, well, June to December. And then yeah, so I just basically switched over all of my content to carnivore. And it's been a really fun kind of like learning experience for me because I'm very curious. I read a lot. I love studying different topics, and I kind of created content first around things that I couldn't find on YouTube, like the carnivore blood work stuff. What are the optimal functional medicine numbers I should be looking for? I shouldn't have to go to a doctor to know what these are. So that's kind of where that first started. And then I just go down all the rabbit holes and kind of figure it out. So I'm learning, and then I share that with my audience. So that's kind of how it evolved, but it wasn't like planned for sure.
Yeah.
You know, it just kind of happened.